Our retrospective with extras who were on the sets of Jurassic World continues with Brent Kappel. Join us now as we delve into his once-in-a-lifetime experience. So, how did you find out about being an extra in Jurassic World?
I was one of those people that did see that ebb tide casting notice circulating. I believe at the time I was on Dan's JP3 page. I don't know, was that anything that you frequented?
Oh yeah,
I
definitely.
I believe I actually remember you from back then. I was a lurker more than an active user, but I was on that site since I was a very young kid. And somebody posted there that they were looking for extras, and I just to backtrack a little bit, I went to school for film and video and, big fan of filmmaking, all pretty much based around Jurassic Park. So I, right around this time, had moved to LA and was working, as a PA and a camera assistant on low budget indie films. So I had a bit of headstrong idea that like I could do this, like, it's possible. I'm already out here. So I sent my stuff in and I didn't hear anything for quite a while. And it sounded like it was similar to Bo and Anthony's experience. But actually, I didn't have to follow up. I did get an email and they emailed me back maybe 2 or 3 months later and basically said, you've been accepted, but you need to come in for a wardrobe fitting. But like I mentioned, I was in Burbank, California at the time. That's where I was living. And the production offices were all in Louisiana. So it was a bit further than a drive. I wish I could have driven. And I was concerned that I wasn't going to be able to be a part of it because I needed to get there. Um, so I did call them immediately. I'm like very excited. And they're like, well, yes, you do have to come in. These are the dates. They had like a range of a week. And, if you come in, we will guarantee that you can be like in the movie. But it meant I was going to have to travel there, go home, and then travel back again, which was a lot at that point, just being like fresh out of college. But again, this was like they had spoken to earlier. It's a once in a lifetime thing. Like I'm gonna figure out how to do this, right? Like it's gonna happen. So I did, and the first time I went out, I booked the trip in a way that I basically got in at like 1 o'clock in the morning, so that I could go to the production office when it opened at 10 a.m. and then get back to the airport and on a plane by like 5 p.m. that afternoon. So I was like in Louisiana for less than 24 hours, but I did end up in a hotel. I got like 2 hours of sleep. And I went to the offices. It was across the street from NASA, the Michonne testing facilities there. And I believe it was like an extras holding. It's where I ended up at when I did film the scientist stuff. That's kind of where we waited before they brought us to set. And, I came in, it was early in the morning. There was a few like PAs and ADs and casting directors there. I mean, there were like 2 or 3 other people that I could tell were there filling out paperwork. So like I just walked in, I walked up to a person and they gave me the paperwork to fill out. I filled it out, I gave it back, and they were like, all right, have a good day. And it was just kind of like, I need to like take this a step further because I came all the way here. I need to like guarantee they knew that it was me because within this process, it was just paperwork. They didn't ask who I was. It was nothing like that. And I had already spoken to people. So I met this very nice lady named Judy, who gave me some more paperwork, like as I was leaving. And I just happened to say, like, is there anywhere I can follow up? And she gave me an email. So I took that and I got on the plane and I wrote like a very long, elaborate email. Like, I'm a big fan. I just came here for 24 hours. I want to make sure I'm going to be in this movie because nobody actually guaranteed anything from this process. And so I sent the email right as I was, landing. And the next morning I wake up to a phone call from Judy and she's like, you did what? You're crazy. You flew here just to fill out paperwork. And I was, well, that's what they told me I had to do. And she's like, let me handle this. And so she put it all together. She's like, you know what? You were going to want to be a park visitor, right? And I was like, yeah. And so she's like, there's 5 days of filming during this week. I'm gonna book you right now. You're guaranteed. And that's kind of how the whole process went, and it was a couple weeks early, so I was able to like really plan getting there the second time. Actually getting to set, which was another adventure, because again, I was trying to cut corners to make this work. I got into the airport the day before filming and actually like stayed there overnight because I got in at about 1 a.m. and I needed a rental car. So I waited in the airport until the rental car facility opened the next day because they were closed. So I had to wait like for like 8 hours, and I was listening to the JurassicPark.org at that time podcast, the Jurassic Outpost guys now. But I had all those downloaded, and I just sat there and I listened to all their theories about the Diabolus Rex and the possible filming within the abandoned Six Flags, which was what I was there for. And come to find out it wasn't filming within the abandoned Six Flags at all. It was a set built next to it, but at that time it was just all kinds of wild speculation. So
I thought the same thing was going to happen. They're going to kind of repurpose this abandoned theme park, and
exactly,
I thought, well, it's
it's
so
such,
cool.
yes, but what they did too is also very neat. But again, I think like we all had our Jurassic Park fours written in our head, and then I would say my idea was definitely the overrun, destroyed Six Flags, right? Creep, but they gave us the shiny new one, and I can't complain about that either.
No.
Um, but I got the rental car, and I had a hotel, which again I was trying to not pay for an extra day, so I wasn't checking in till later that day. So I ended up going to a theater and renting a ticket to watch X-Men, and I just sat there and I did like a double feature. I kind of just stayed in the theater, and then I left, and I went to the hotel, and obviously couldn't sleep that night because I was just too excited. But
Yeah.
did get up the next morning. I luckily didn't miss my alarm. I can't remember who was it that said that they did, but that would have been a very scary morning, I'm sure. So I did get there very early. I think they spoke to the name of the film, obviously Ebb Tide, but every morning we had a secret password to get on set, and the password for us was salmon. Don't know why, but that's what it was. So you had to show up, and there was a guy at the gate, and you'd be like salmon, and they'd let you in. So
Interesting. The Main Street set is what they built on the parking lot of the abandoned Six Flags. Not in it for anyone who gets confused. Unfortunately, they didn't use any part of the actual theme park, but giant parking lot. So they made a giant Main Street exterior set because, I mean, some of the exteriors did have interiors that you could go into partially, right?
they did, yes. So when you kind of approached the set, so after saying salmon and going through the gate and kind of navigating in, because it was an old theme park, it was built to house like a large amount of cars, big parking, and the actual like lanes to get in kind of snaked through a little bit of forested area, which was definitely overgrown because it was no longer operating, kind of like an abandoned Jurassic would be. So it was very cool to drive in early in the morning, dark out, through kind of the jungle, as you will, and then pulling into the parking lot. There, at the time I arrived, already probably about 100 extras. They had us come in waves because there were so many of us. There were, I think, almost 1,000 extras during the Main Street filming.
Wow.
So when you pull in, you could see like the entrance to Six Flags kind of off on your left side, the actual theme park, and then like straight ahead, it just looked like stacks and stacks of shipping containers, and you could just over the tops of the shipping containers see like palm trees and things like poking out. So that actually is kind of how they built most of Main Street. Was they used the shipping containers as like the foundation and then built off of those to build the facades. And then, like you said, some did have the actual interiors. Others were more just windows with displays. Starbucks did have an interior. It had like, the machine for pouring the coffee. Lots of people had cups. There was like a mural in there of sorts. I think you can kind of see it in the scene where Blue kind of gets thrown into the wall during the attack at the end. There was obviously Winston's Steakhouse, which was, very cool to see as the homage that it was. And then there was the gift shop. That was an entirely built out set with all of the things you would expect in a Jurassic World gift shop. So that was very cool to see. I think the gift shop would probably be the main thing that people would have liked to have gone into, even if it was like they did in the original Jurassic, just that nice close up that kind of just pans around, all those collectibles, which made me the collector that I am, I think. And that you get a little bit of that in the movie with them hiding in the Jurassic Traders booth and also running through the gift shop, during the attack. But I think it would have been very nice to have like a slower moment in there because they did have, tons of things. I mean, I guess I could talk a little bit about that. I mean, again, this was before the new movie had come out, so there weren't new products. So a lot of what was in there was conceptual pieces for some of the toys we did end up getting, and then just things that like never have seen the light of day other than, through promotional images and stuff. And so they had at that point the last line of Jurassic toys were like Toys R Us kind of exclusive ones, and they had those packages, but with like just a Jurassic World like sticker like over them. And I could tell that being a person who like knew what the old boxes looked like. I was just like, oh, they literally just put like a sticker on these, and they had hard plastic versions of what ended up being the Hasbro toys that came out for Jurassic World, so they weren't like articulated in any way, but they kind of looked like the toys they ended up putting out. They had like a bigger T-Rex that was in there that was kind of a hard plastic. There were T-shirts, and that was one thing. Like when I was there, I got the wrong impression because there were a lot of extras and T-shirts that had two T-Rexes on them. It was a really cool design. They were kind of side by side. It said Jurassic World like right below them. So, obviously speculation being what it is, the idea is they have the Rexes from Sorna, or there's a new Rex, or there's a family of Rexes. Obviously, we knew from the park map that there was a T-Rex kingdom. So what could that mean? I'll know where the movie went, but it was cool to see that stuff at that time and just, be able to wonder what could be in this movie. Some of the other kind of cooler stuff outside of the toys where they had like a fully dressed keychain rack. As exciting as that could be, right? But like all keychains that, you would buy at Jurassic World, and nothing that really comes to mind, but that you do see one of them on the keys in the ambulance. So she's using keys in there. And one of those keychains was definitely one of the keychains that you could like buy, or that was on the display.
I didn't realize that. That's cool. It's amazing that there was so much in that gift shop and the smaller outposts that we just never really got a good look at. If it wasn't for the promotional images and the other stuff out there, like I think it was the Today Show that did a little set visit inside the gift shop with Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard. They didn't really show much. They just kind of goofed around in there, but it was like way before the movie came out. So it set up this, like expectation that we were really going to see more of it, but it just never happens in the film. So it's nice to at least have something silly like that just to see the details of that space a bit more.
Yeah, and just to think about how many people had to create art just for, those things that were, ultimately not seen. It's pretty crazy. And there were a set of postcards, which all had graphics, some of them related to the series. I don't remember all of them offhand, but the one that really struck me while I was there was an image of a person holding a very small Triceratops in their hand, and I think it said something about like holding a dinosaur in the palm of your hand on the postcard. And to me, that was like a very cool and subtle reference to the novel and kind of the start of the book where they speak about potentially bringing Jurassic to a point where there could be pets, pygmy, I think they're called, like versions of the dinosaurs that they could then maybe potentially sell as consumer items, even with like InGen branded food and things like that. And I always thought that was like a really cool small detail from the book. And, obviously it's not in the movies, in any way that anybody other than somebody in that specific place would know, but that was on a postcard. And yeah, I mean, just that whole scene, if they would have let me stay in the gift shop for an hour, I would have. And if they would have let me actually purchase, said gifts, I definitely would have done that too. But, that definitely would have been a thing I would have liked them to have shown more. And actually, after filming, I made friends with a person who worked in the art department on Jurassic World. They did some of the previs stuff before the movie got like postponed. And I'm sure you know like that whole process, how they announced Jurassic World and then they delayed it for like a year or two. I can't remember how long it was at that point, and then the production started again. So he was initially on helping to do some of the park stuff. So he helped with some early gyrosphere concepts, not anything that was the final version, but he did design skateboards because I guess in the original script there was some sort of scene where there were kids skateboarding around and they wanted to have like the bottom of the skateboards Jurassic World branded. So he had created those. And actually you can see on the wall in the gift shop in the like the panning shot when the dinosaurs are fighting like outside, you can see the skateboard like mounted to the wall with his design on it. So that's kind of cool. And again, it just goes to show like, you know, he's one person that just did that one thing. I'm sure there were hundreds of people that were involved with just those pieces of art in the gift shop, you know. So that was cool, and I do wish they would have shown that a little bit more. Margaritaville also, which did have the working margarita machines and a fully built out patio that people could be, you know, above and within the restaurant. The margaritas weren't drinkable. They made that very clear, but they did have a lot of that stuff out on tables. After a day or so, though, they were quite full of flies and things. You would understand that, like, yeah, we're not going to drink these anymore. Very cool. And as everybody knows, and I can confirm that was Jimmy Buffett. He was there. It was like a big deal. Like it was funny because like so many of the extras were over the moon that Jimmy Buffett's there. And I was like, yeah, I'm already as excited as I can be. Like I'm at Jurassic. I mean, Jimmy Buffett's cool, don't get me wrong, but like it was just like so many people got excited about that. I'm like, I'm already here, guys. Like I'm already this excited. Like what?
Yeah, it's just extra ice on the margarita,
Yeah, this is
basically.
even cooler. And now he's running away with margaritas. Like this is awesome. So there were, you know, a few other restaurants that you do see in the movies, kind of on the tops of some of the shops that were on the main street. I think like one of them was a tequila bar, and then another restaurant across the way. But all of them had, you know, tables, menus on the tables, drinks, glasses. You know, it felt like being in Disney, but Jurassic themed. It was an experience just for that alone. So.
And they clearly spared no expense, right?
You could say that.
I had to.
Yes. From the Peeps branded candy boxes, I think they had Mike and Ike's. They had, like we said, Starbucks coffee cups. I don't think they were Isla Nublar branded, but it felt like they should have been. And you know, I the bags and all the wardrobe for you know, all the park goers and the maps and all of that. It was you know, something to see, and that was basically my first experience when you show up on set. You know, we walked through the parking lot, and they had PAs kind of dispersed even in the parking lot, and they were grabbing people as they were walking in and making us put stickers on our cameras, which I do still have mine, and it does, you know, have the ET on it for Ebb Tide. I know you guys were talking to that earlier. I like to at least personally believe Ebb Tide was the choice because it did abbreviate down to ET. It was something I heard from like a PA kind of while we were there, but you know, it definitely is secondhand information. I don't know if that was actually the truth.
That's clever if it was, because that makes sense. It'd be like a code name, like, oh, it's a Spielberg related production because of ET and everything, and Amblin, you know, like
Exactly.
that is perfect. Yeah.
So in my head, that's what I believe.
Yeah. We're gonna stick with it. No one else knows anyway, so you might as well believe it.
Yeah, I mean it is what I was told. So
it's great.
So yeah, so they put those stickers on our cameras, and it was strange how it happened, right? Because we weren't even on set yet, and it was just like make sure you know, they were making it very clear this is all very top secret. So they were very like anti, you know, anything leaking. There were actually a few people on the set, like kids, that did get kicked out because they took photos. You know, so
wow.
it actually did happen. And I don't think it was anybody that was probably trying to do it to leak online or anything. They were just kids there, like, you know, with their phones out, being very obvious about what they were doing, and they did ask them to leave. It was something that I saw happen. So
wow, so they took it so seriously that they're like, you little brat, get out of here. You're gone. You're done.
yeah, exactly.
That's
So
crazy.
yeah, it did put that fear of like, don't do this. I did sneak a few photos, but
We won't tell anyone about that. Oh,
yeah,
wait,
yeah,
it's too late. It happened.
yeah, it's too late now, 9 years ago. But that made it a little bit more nerve-wracking to do, without a doubt. After they put those stickers on, you made it through the parking lot to basically a row of tables, with the casting assistants and casting directors kind of at it. They had everybody's name, so you had to basically check in. There was definitely some anxiety at that point, like, am I really like on this list, or am I gonna like get here and they're gonna be like, get out of here. What are you doing here? Right. But luckily got up there, and it was Judy, the lady who I had spoken with on the phone, who had really helped me out. And so I got to thank her immediately, and that really helped with me being able to like see her over the time I was there, and kind of just talk and just let her know how much of a fan I was, which she definitely understood. And so they let us in after checking us in, and there were a series of large tents, and each one was a different kind of stage of the process. So the first was wardrobe. So I had pre-selected my outfit based off of an email they sent, which kind of laid out what they were looking for, preppy park goers, and they kind of gave suggested colors, all of this stuff. Bought like 5 shirts, and like, had somebody give me their opinion on like what's the best one. It was a whole thing before I went. And showing up, like, you would go in and they essentially were like, you did a good job or you did a bad job, and if you did a bad job, they'd clothe you. And luckily I got the nod. They're like, yeah, you did good. So I was like, all right, which in a way wasn't great, because if you didn't show up with clothes, or they didn't like what you had, and then you got to wear basically like Jurassic World stuff. And so I was kind of like, well, darn, I shouldn't even have done that. I could have got a cool Jurassic World shirt. But I guess the clothes I wore are now like screen used clothing, right? So it's cool that I got to pick my
Exactly.
outfit. Yeah. So once you're through that tent, which was a lot of people getting all of these awesome, Jurassic World, different branded T-shirts, which at this time was, all new to see, because it was all under wraps as far as on the internet was concerned at this point. And so I'm in this tent with people that look like they're getting ready to go to a real Jurassic World, it was very cool. And the next tent over, they moved you through this process, was a large room, I would say basketball court size, so fairly large, in rows of tables. And each row had probably 20 large mirrors with the large, like, light bulbs, like just like you would think of in like a classic Hollywood movie. And at each one of them, there were, stylists. So every extra that came through went to a stylist. They, checked your beard. They like snipped off hair if they needed to. And then they put on like a massive amount of sunscreen, on everybody, because it was very, very hot, and, very little shade, because it was all created. There weren't like, wasn't natural trees or anything to really keep us out of the sun. So they lathered us in sunscreen. And then they
It's a good
sent us
thing.
exactly. And then they sent us to the next tent, which was the most exciting one, which was prop distribution. And again, they kind of spoke to this earlier, but you had to give an ID, and then you got a variety of different types of props. So I did get a scan band, which I have as well. They did let the extras keep our scan bands, which was very, very nice of them. At that time, there were many other things that I was like, I wish I could be bringing all of this home with me, right? But it was very surreal to be standing in this line, amongst people in Jurassic World shirts, holding park maps. Some people, because we were in the park at this point, like in the ACU outfits and in the, just general like park management staffers and all this, like we were all just in a line together, 30, 40 people deep. And it felt like, oh, I'm waiting for a real, bus to go to this park. It was so cool. And that was before even ever stepping on set, right? So
Yeah, it's quite a buildup.
yeah. I shared some of these photos with you, but I immediately I took my map and my wristband and I went to a porta potty because that was like nobody could see me there. And I took this really crappy selfie of just my wristband because they mentioned earlier, I needed something to show. I was here. This was a thing that happened, and I understood the need for secrecy. I didn't want to share any of these things immediately online. I wasn't trying to spoil the movie, but it was just living in that moment, being I need to prove I was here, even if I'm in a porta potty on the set, I'm here. So finally, after all the extras had arrived, they gave us kind of a rousing speech. They did that every day. It was always pretty cool. Actually, on one of the days, Bryce and Chris came in and did a speech to the extras, you're part of something really exciting here. It was cool of them to do that. But on this first day, they explained kind of what the set was like. I think it's still true currently, but at that point, it was one of the biggest film sets ever created as far as a seamless set. So like you had mentioned, the interiors and the exteriors and, it all being actually in one location and built. So they kind of explained that to us. And then they also explained but don't leave it, because outside of that is an abandoned amusement park, which is overrun by all kinds of poisonous Louisiana-based reptiles and creatures. So that was an interesting conversation to have. It was just the way you phrased it. It related to Jurassic. It's just stay within the perimeter, or you will be,
Yeah, otherwise you'll end up in Isla Sorna and the Hurricane Clarissa wiped out facilities and
over there. Exactly. So they let us out and they brought us to the wall of shipping crates. And they kind of had us wait there, and it was really cool that they did it this way. And they had the ADs in front of us, and they kind of all at once were they separated us. Some people went more towards the front area, which would have brought them out onto Main Street, by where the mosasaur, actually the lagoon is, that fencing. And then the other half went in where the gentle giants petting zoo entrance was that Zach and Gray come down in the movie. And that was where I went in at, but they kind of separated us out, and then they had us hold, and then they turned on the PA system to actually play the music. They played John Williams, they played the theme, and then they let us all on set, and that experience was amazing. I walked in and actually got to see the Spinosaurus skeleton there, directly, you would see it as a visitor, as the music's swelling. It was very cool.
Oh, totally. Now, which scenes are you in that you can locate yourself that are on the main street?
The ones that you could pick me up in are the big introductory shot. So there's which was interesting how they filmed it. You get the cool flyover when Zach opens the door and says, I don't want to wait anymore. Just like us, we're ready. We want to be at Jurassic Park. And you fly over the main street, and that was filmed a helicopter shot with live extras, at least in that main center area of Main Street. Everything else was digitally added in. But that was our first day, so that the helicopter shots were what they were doing. I'm on the steps in all those shots, but it's very extremely wide, so you can't really pick that out at all. But they did end up doing a secondary kind of Main Street fly down, which is kind of a little bit later, not much later, but a little bit later. And
I think it's when they're about to enter the Innovation Center, right?
Yes. And in that one, it's really cool. I met another gentleman. They, that's how extras work. They just say stand with this person. You're now friends, talk and just act out the scene like you're at a park together. So me and this cool guy were just talking, and we got placed right on the steps, nobody around us. And so the camera comes down the street, and we're both pretending we're looking at the map, we should go to the egg spinner because that's on the map, and it's just let's walk that way. And so you can definitely see the two of us kind of observing the map and walking down the steps right as the camera comes up to the Innovation Center. And it's cool because now they use that image a lot for marketing stuff. So I get to be standing there, and whenever they show that particular shot, I'm look, I'm at Jurassic World. So
because it's one of the money shots.
Exactly. Yes, it was very cool. And the way filming works, obviously, is there are multiple cameras, the angles, that seems like it's 20 seconds, but it probably took 3 or 4 hours of the day to get the helicopter shot, but then also the reverse of them coming into the innovation center, and the wide of them walking up the stairs. And so you have to walk that same path like 100 times, because they'll be like, now that you're in the wide shot, we need to keep the continuity. And so I ended up walking up and down those steps who knows how many times. I mean, I'm not complaining. Let's see. Another is when Zach and Gray are entering T-Rex Kingdom. So that one was one where I, being a person who is on or does work on film or in film, I kind of know how blocking works a little bit. And I had done ADing in the past, so I kind of know how that works too. So I knew they were setting up that shot to be kind of like a wide, and I knew it was T-Rex Kingdom, and I didn't get placed in it. I didn't. So I just walked in. And so where you see me in this shot, there's like a family like sitting at a table. They're all like talking to each other. I just walked over and stood next to the table. And like the ADs, because there's like a bunch of ADs, there's not just one, there's like 4 or 5 directing hundreds of extras, putting people in the scene. I just kind of walked over, and like if anybody asked, I was just going to be like, I got put here. And so the people at the table kind of were like, what's going on? And I was just like, I'm just on my phone and I'm going to hold my map, because they gave almost all the extras a fake cell phone. So when you see me a lot of the time, I'm on that, because that was like the one prop I had. So I just like used it like I was a person kind of talking to somebody else in the park. And before I had been there, that was a thing. Early in the production, Colin talked about that visual of the person with the phone standing in front of the T-Rex, not paying attention. And like, I got that when I was there and saw like, oh, they gave everybody phones. They want it to look like people are here, not like caring so much. So nobody gave me that direction, but that's why like I'm always on the phone, because I was distracted. And that's like one of the clearest shots I made it into, and it was all just lucky that nobody noticed. And now people know, so sorry.
It's like, watch out for this one, he'll try to insert himself in next time, people. Watch out.
Next time.
Hey, you never know.
Yeah, you don't, right? You truly don't. That was kind of the majority of the non-dinosaur attack, where I was showing up, if I'm not mistaken. And then I am in quite a few of the Pteranodon, Dimorphodon Main Street attack scenes, which were amazing to film. It was a little bit later into the week of production. We did all the slow, like normal park stuff the first 2 days, and they did a lot of stuff that's not in the movie that you had mentioned for like the viral sites and things like that. So there were cameras all over that were just filming like in the gift shops or in these different various stores, and they would just have extras go in there and like mingle around so they could get footage to put on to those sites. So we did a lot of that for the first 2 days, and then right around the third day was when we transitioned to the running and screaming, which is what Colin literally said. I appreciated that very much. He did a speech at the end of the first day of the Pteranodon attack stuff, and he basically said, like, you guys raised the bar on running and screaming, and it was cool to hear him quoting the movie like that, like we do as fans all the time, right? I think both of us may have done it once or twice already at this point.
Yeah, we have to. It's part of our DNA.
Yes. So yeah, we started that, and a lot of it is practical. I know Jurassic World is a very CGI heavy movie, and there's no denying that the dinosaurs were done entirely CGI for the most part. Disappointingly to a lot of fans, I think. I was a person definitely going there like, oh, I can't wait to see these amazing animatronic practical effects, and didn't get so much of that. But what they did do was more along the lines of like practical stunt work and practical effects work. So they did a lot of wire pulls, like breaking things and destroying things that, once you watch the movie, you take for granted, because a big pteranodon is crashing into it digitally. You would assume it all is, but in reality, they were doing a lot of that live there with hundreds of people around, and then obviously trained stunt performers, like really in the dangerous areas, but then they had the general extras kind of just filling in, making it look like, everything was chaotic like it was. But one of the first things they filmed was the view from inside Winston's Steakhouse. So you see it in the movie. There's like the chef cooking on the grill, and the Dimorphodon like lands on the grill, and like everybody's running by outside. So for that scene, there's a balcony across the way, which is a tequila bar. It's right above Jurassic Traders, and I got to be like right kind of in the corner of that balcony, like looking down on Main Street, which was where they had this big practical wire pole set up for the big glass bamboo reeds that looked, like lights that were kind of in front of Winston's Steakhouse. And in the movie, you do see them. So, like, from that shot, there's a pteranodon that crashes into those glass bamboo shoots. So that's actually all practical. They pulled and broke all those into like a bunch of pieces, and it was a one take. So, they kind of directed us to be like looking around, like we're being attacked from the air, and, obviously don't stare at the effect because that would ruin it. I'm actually in the background of that scene, like cowering as the pteranodon like crashes in and takes it out. And they'd put a Dimorphodon like on the railing above me, and it's like snapping down at me. I'm like maybe 50 pixels, right? Like I'm very tiny in a corner of an image, but they did put a dinosaur there. So, that's pretty cool. I'm like, I got attacked by the Dimorphodon in that shot.
Yeah, how many people can say that? That's great.
Yeah, so that was cool, and also just to see the effect, because again, it was a one take. They didn't have more of those bamboo reeds to break, so it was like, we're gonna get this one, and they did, and it looks cool in the movie. I really like that shot, even if I wasn't lucky enough to be in the background. I always laugh when it lands on the grill. There was a lot of that in the background in ways that people probably just don't know, like even like the tables along Main Street, or they had like Triceratops strollers and things. Like a lot of that stuff in those scenes was rigged to be pulled and broken and destroyed. And you can see it in the background, but it would definitely be something nobody would really key into because so much else is happening. But
and that's kind of what they want it to be, right? Because they don't want you to be focused on the effect, like
a magic trick almost, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That would be where you could see me. And then the last kind of shot, I'm in on Main Street, and it's actually the last shot I'm in the movie, from like the lagoon looking back, and the pteranodons are attacking, and a woman gets taken down by like a pteranodon kind of like right in the foreground, and then a guy like runs through like bottom a corner screen like through there, and a Dimorphodon like dive bombs in, and I didn't notice for like the first handful of times I watched the movie, but by about the sixth time I was like, that guy's me. And so like I like run through like the very bottom of frame, and a Dimorphodon does like snap at my head and like fly throughout. And again, it was pretty cool. I can say officially I survived a dinosaur attack in a Jurassic film. So
did you see any of the legacy effects prop heads?
I did, yeah. So that actually, again, yeah, going there being like, I can't wait to see all this practical dinosaurs that are going to have. I was looking out for it, and what we did end up seeing were the little, they weren't full size interpretations of the dinosaurs, but I think they were like, maybe some scaled down version, but they were there for lighting purposes. And they did have the Dimorphodon and the Pteranodon. I was like on a balcony when they had them out, so they were like really far away from me, so I didn't get like a very close look at them, but I definitely was, ogling them from a distance, like, oh, that's so cool. Like that was the closest I really got to the dinosaurs on set. And then there was one instance a little bit later where they were doing the scene where Zach and Gray get to Main Street, and the Pteranodon gets tranked, and it like crashes into the Dave and Buster's, and it like slides towards them. And they had a big Pteranodon, the full scale head, but it was an unpainted one. So the littler maquettes were painted, and they did look like they were going to look in the movies. But the one full size one they had was just like a resin kind of color. But that was very cool to see. They kind of like moved it in to kind of simulate the dinosaur crashing down and things like that. I was there for the infamous Zara pteranodon attack. That was amazing to see, and she truly was like a trooper for doing it and being excited for it. Throughout the course of the week of being there, they actually set up the green screen for her fall in the parking lot. Because it was a massive parking lot, they corned off an area and they just painted a big green square, like huge green square just in the middle of this parking lot. The day they did it, one of the extras left and drove across it. So they had to repaint it. Yeah, because people are, they make bad decisions sometimes. So this person decided, I'm, driving across this thing that's coned off. And so, yeah, they were mad at us the next day about that. Obviously, they didn't know who did it, but they repainted it. And throughout the course of the week, the conversation was always like, what are they going to do over there? Like, because they, we're extras. They don't really tell us much of anything other than what you need to know, which is how it goes. It was a very dangerous thing she was doing. I mean, she gets yanked very hard, like very fast, straight into the air, and she was doing it over and over again. So they definitely had like safety meetings for even all of us, like, you have to keep X amount of distance. She was just super excited though. Like a lot of the actors like are on set and they leave when they need to, they come back when they need to, but she was there like the whole day, just like in the tent, like talking to people. Like it was just clear she was like, I can't believe I'm getting to do this. And then just watching her, because I wasn't one of the extras that was like running around so much, they didn't need everybody like for all of those scenes because they were closer in. So I just kind of got to watch her and just yanked in the air and back down and yanked in the air again and back down. Like, and then getting to see the final cut of it, I personally really like that moment. I know it has its reasons for being divisive, and that's fine too. But like I being there and just knowing what went into it's a very technically cool shot, even outside of just being like exciting.
I'm sure she must have been a fan too. I mean, maybe that's why she was around the set the whole day and talking to everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, she's very down to earth, which is great to hear that about any actor. So that's fantastic.
And they all were. I would say, I was lucky enough to be around Chris Pratt, Bryce Dallas Howard, Ty Simpkins, and Nick Robinson. They were all, especially those two, the same. They were just kind of on set the whole time because they were just kids, like living it up, like this is awesome. And Chris Pratt was funny and witty to everybody he was around. He was always cracking jokes, like like you would expect. And at that point, he wasn't the Chris Pratt we all like know now, Star-Lord and all this stuff. He was just, he had been in Parks and Rec and was in some stuff, but I didn't know what to expect from him as a person, and he was as like funny as you would expect him to be.
In the final segment, Brent details his experience in the Hammond Creation Lab and an examination of several fantastic props.